Welcome to the Built for Playmakers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kelvin Hunt, editor of ChopChat.com. Hope you guys are doing well. In this episode, we're going to discuss FSU's game-by-game season predictions. So we're going to discuss, kind of what I think is going to happen in each game, and then give you a win percentage or win totals, win share to add up towards the end. So can FSU go undefeated? If you watched a few of my videos in the past, I think it's a two-game schedule for the most part. But look, we'll get into it without wasting any more time. So FSU will open the season against LSU September 3rd, 7:30, prime time, box office boys. Look, I like FSU in this matchup. When you look at everything in totality, both teams have improved. But FSU, I think, has added more talent. They're bringing back more experience, have more continuity. I think they have the better quarterback. And when you look at it, FSU really dominated large stretches of that game last year. And bringing everything together with LSU's kind of documented problems in the secondary, it's going to be, can LSU stop FSU's running game? If they bring guys down in the box, I think FSU will be able to hit them over the top, win a lot of 50-50 balls with Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. If they can't stop FSU from running the ball, then we know it's going to be a long night. LSU's offense largely revolves around Jaden Daniels. Last year he pretty much just scrambled for his life. And FSU shut down pretty much everything else aside from a couple plays. I think FSU has better depth along the defensive line. Bring back both starting linebackers there. And I like that matchup. So I'm going to give FSU a 60% chance of winning the game. And if they win that one, man, it's going to be off to the races. It's going to tell us a lot about this team. So moving right along, FSU will host Southern Mississippi for their home opener September 9th at 8:30, another primetime game. Look, Southern Miss wasn't a good team last year. They averaged about 25 points per game. They allowed about 25 points per game. Their offense consists of Frank Gore Jr. and nobody else. And if you shut their running game down, which is pretty much him, you shut their offense down. And really, he only had 3 100-yard rushing games last year, and it was against the likes of Rice, Liberty, and some other scrubs. So FSU should be stout against the run and should not have any problems with Southern Miss. I like that game for a lot of the young guys to get some valuable snaps to go ahead and start building that depth that may come into play later into the season. Moving right along, FSU will travel up to Boston College for a sleepy noon kickoff September 16th. Look, if this game was the next day on the 17th, I might be a little more afraid. The 17th is my birthday. My birthday is notorious for having bad things happen. Prime example, 2016 Louisville was on your boy's birthday, and that was a terrible birthday. But nevertheless, we're not playing Lamar Jackson. We're playing Boston College and a bunch of scrubs. It is a noon kickoff, so you got that to play into it. But Boston College, they're going to have a new quarterback. I think they're going to have a new coordinator. They're going to have a lot of new faces on defense. And look, they just don't have the talent to match up with FSU. Aside from FSU getting off to a slow start or something, it may be close for a little bit, but I expect them to pull away and win this one pretty handedly. So FSU should go on a run and roll those guys. I give them a 95% chance of winning this game. And hopefully, they go ahead and get them out of there early so the starters can rest with Clemson on deck. So Clemson will host FSU on September 23rd. Probably a primetime game, especially if FSU takes care of business against LSU. Look, Clemson has an inexperienced quarterback, Cade Klubnik. He's talented, but he's young and inexperienced. They'll have a new offensive coordinator in Garrett Riley, who's really good, but it's game 4. And I'm not sure they'll have all the wrinkles worked out. I think Clemson's offensive line will probably be a little bit better. But Clemson does not have the wide receivers that they used to have when they were along their dominant run. Their offense revolves a lot around Will Shipley in the run game and him doing some damage in the passing game out of the backfield. And, aside from him, I don't think they offer that much. When you look at it, Dabo Swinney historically will run his quarterback to death in a game that he feels like he has to win, going all the way back to Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, and even Trevor Lawrence. He'll run the quarterback. Will he do it with Klubnik? With no proven depth behind him, I'm not sure. So that's kind of a factor that plays into it. But FSU would have already faced a mobile quarterback with Jaden Daniels in game one, so they should be prepared for that. As far as Clemson's defense, I don't trust their co-defensive coordinators. They lost quite a bit from their defense last year to the NFL. And if you look at it, FSU moved the ball really well against Clemson last year. They just, had a untimely turnover. And, there were a couple instances where they needed to convert in short, third and short or fourth and short, and they didn't have the horses on the offensive line to get it done. And I think, that's one of the reasons why FSU went into the portal and, got bigger and more experienced on the offensive line. So I think FSU is gonna score against Clemson. The question is, can Clemson keep up? And early in the season, I don't think that's going to be the case. So even though it's on the road, FSU went up to Clemson in 2021 with a lesser team, and arguably should have won that game. So I'm taking FSU to win at Clemson in game 4, 65% winning percentage in that game. So moving right along, FSU will host Virginia Tech on October 7th. Your boy will be at that game. So if you plan to be at the Virginia Tech game, let me know in the comment section. We'll love to link up with you guys, hang out, whatnot. Look, Virginia Tech's in rebuilding mode. They're going to have, I think, a new quarterback, a lot of new pieces. I know they went to the transfer portal to try to get some help, but they are a long way away from doing anything. And this will be a great kind of get our lick back, so to speak, for 2018 Virginia Tech. That was such an embarrassment in Willie Taggart's first game at FSU. So look, FSU should win this game pretty handedly, and I have them with a 95% chance of winning this game. So moving right along, FSU will welcome the Syracuse Orange to Doak Campbell Stadium. Syracuse was a team that a lot of people liked last year. They surprised some people by beating Louisville in week 1, but that was more so Louisville beating themselves with 3 turnovers. And Syracuse played a really soft schedule early on and got out to that 6-0 start. And so everybody started worrying about Syracuse. And if you go on my timeline on Twitter or TweetX or whatever you want to call it, I would tell you that Syracuse's offense was really simple. They had Sean Tucker, Aronde Gaston, and then the quarterback, Garrett Schrader. Aside from that, they had nothing. And I knew that they were not really deep on both sides of the ball, and I knew they played a murderer's row before they played FSU. So I just can't watch. Just by the time they get the FSU on the schedule, it's not going to be good for those guys. And you saw what happened. FSU rolled those guys pretty significantly. Sean Tucker's no longer there. They lost a couple guys out of the secondary. They have a new defensive coordinator, I think it is, and may have a new offensive coordinator as well. So they do bring back a quarterback, so you got to account for that. But, it's a home game. FSU should have no problems with Syracuse. I'm giving FSU an 85% chance of winning that game. Which brings us to Duke on October 21st. Another home game for the Noles. FSU's never lost to Duke. That's something that Miami can't say. Oh, man. A lot of people like Duke. We'll learn a lot about Duke whenever they open the season against Clemson in week 1. Duke, they do return a lot of production and experience. They return Riley Leonard at quarterback, who's kind of a poor man's Jordan Travis, so to speak. He can run. He's mobile, and he can throw the ball a little bit. But I liken Duke to Syracuse a little bit last year. obviously they have some talent. They won 9 games last year, but they only beat two teams that had winning records also. So you got to take that into consideration. But I think that by the time they play FSU, they'll probably be beat up a little bit. Like I said, they opened the game against Clemson, and I think they play Pitt and NC State. They have a bye in between those games, but they still play two pretty physical defenses before they come to FSU. So I think that they'll probably try to run the ball, try to be conservative a little bit. Mike Elko is a good defensive-minded guy. So I think he knows they can't get into a shootout. And, so they like to run the ball a lot last year. So, but ultimately, I think FSU will have too much firepower and pull away and win that game by a couple of scores. I have FSU with an 80% chance to win that game. Which brings us to Wake Forest on October 28th. So that game is going to take place on the road in Winston-Salem, which is about an hour and 45 minutes west of me. I'm really tempted to go to that game and wear my FSU shirt. And I mean, the way Wake Forest has been talking, I'm like, yeah, they've won a few games in a row, and they're mad at FSU because FSU wants to leave the ACC, and who is FSU supposed to be because we beat you guys recently, and blah 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 blah. Wake Forest, I thought, was supposed to be a university where a bunch of smart people were enrolled, but apparently that's not the case because they don't understand how brands and value work. Wake Forest will have a new quarterback. They've already lost their top receiver to the NFL. They lost another receiver that's pretty good to an injury. Never want to see that, so prayers out to that young man, and hopefully he heals up. I think they lost one other guy as well. Also, Wake Forest lost a lot of their super senior COVID guys. So, they got a bit younger, and they're not going to be as deep. And look, their defense wasn't good last year. That game was more so FSU beating FSU than anything else. And I don't think that's going to be the case. This year, I think Florida State might drop a 50-burger on Wake Forest. I mean, I think Mike Norvell is going to send a message here. Now, it is in Winston-Salem. Who knows what will happen with the ACC refs? We've seen it there before. But look, FSU should win that game going away. I have them with an 85% chance of winning that game, which brings us to Pitt on November 4th. I know this game scares some people. Historically, in recent history, Pitt has a good defense, good defensive line. Pat Narduzzi is a good coach, and but Pitt lost, I think, 3 guys off of their defensive line. They lost a couple of other guys. They'll have a new quarterback in Phil Jakovic, who came over from Boston College. He rejoined his old offensive coordinator from Boston College, Frank Zignetti, who was there at Boston College in 2021 when FSU pretty much shut those guys down. And pretty much it was Jakovic and Zay Flowers, who's an NFL wide receiver. Pitt, they don't have anyone special at wide receiver. They got a couple guys that are okay. But I think that, Narduzzi likes to run the ball. He likes to be conservative. I don't think a lot of teams are going to be able to run on FSU this year unless, just multiple injuries happen or something. So if they put it in Jakovic's, put it on his arm to make something happen, we've seen him get absolutely ramshacked by FSU's defensive line over the past couple of years. So I'm not really worried about Pitt. I think this will probably be a bit of a low-scoring game. It could be a little colder, maybe rainy or something up north. But FSU's built to win those type of games because they're a power-running team. Those wide receivers out wide, they're going to be clearing guys out in the second level. So if FSU has to win a game of attrition, I think they're built to do it with a better offensive line. You can always run Jordan Travis if you need to also. And again, you're going to have straight monsters at tight end and wide receiver that can win a lot of 50-50 balls. So FSU should have no problems with Pitt on the road. I don't think. I'm not really a believer in trap games. If you're an elite program, usually elite teams find ways to win. If FSU is as good as we think they are, shouldn't be any problem. So I have FSU with an 80% chance of beating Pitt on November 4th, which brings us to the Miami game, November 11th. Miami comes to Doak Campbell Stadium. Miami played some cupcakes earlier in the year, so they should at least be close to bowl eligible, if not already. They have Tyler Van Dyke back, but they don't have much else. Miami hasn't been able to run the ball against FSU the past couple of years. In 2021, Van Dyke had a couple of receivers, Rambo and one other guy that could go up and win some 50-50 balls for him. And that's really what their offense consisted of under Rhett Lashley. They have Restrepo at wide receiver. Other than that, they don't really have too much or even any proven guys, so to speak. Miami's talking about playing a bunch of freshmen, and I hope they do. You run a bunch of freshmen out there if you want to against some grown men, and you can get another butt whipping like you got last year. They have some talent. It's a rivalry game. Crazier things have happened, but it's at home. FSU, they want to send a message that they are definitely running the state of Florida for the second year in a row. And so they should take care of business. I have FSU with an 85% chance of beating Miami for the third time in a row. Who would have thought that would be the case after the 2020 game in COVID? But I don't really count 2020. So anyway, moving along, I'm not going to keep you too much longer with the North Alabama game. Look, that's a game FSU should destroy. 99% chance of winning. And hopefully a bunch of the young guys can get some valuable reps, and FSU can start preparation for UF on November 25th, which is my granddaddy's birthday. So good vibes there. Rest in peace, granddad. Going back to last year, obviously Florida had a pretty talented team. They had one of the better offensive lines. They had a first-round quarterback who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn aside from 3 touchdown passes when FSU didn't have the best guy out there covering a certain guy, but once they made adjustments, they pretty much shut that up. Graham Mertz is nothing special. I expect Florida to be a conservative offense this year, game control, try to run the ball behind the offensive line. They got 2 really good running backs. Can't take anything away from those guys. Florida had a really suspect defense last year. They have a new coordinator who apparently thinks he's a young Brent Venables or something, but I'm not, we'll see. We'll see, man. I don't know. He's that guy's, I can't recall his name, but I'm not really impressed with him. Will they be able to stop Florida State's offense? The game is in the swamp, so you got to take that in consideration. And, yeah, I don't know. It may sound crazy, but I have FSU with a 75% chance of beating Florida. So if you tally up all of these win shares that I have, I basically have FSU at 10.03 wins for the season, which is about what Vegas has their win total at. It's like 9.5 or 10. Like I said, really you have those 2 games between LSU and Clemson early on that are pretty much going to dictate everything. Like I said, if they win those 2 games, it's there's not going to be many obstacles on the schedule left aside from just some key people, things happening. And I'm not even going to put that in the atmosphere, so we'll just leave that there. And like I said, rivalry games are, they can go crazy every once in a while, but I just believe when you have the better team, usually that cream rises to the top, and I expect that to happen this year. So that should put FSU in the ACC Championship game. It'll be interesting to see who they match up with if that's the case. Obviously, if they beat Clemson and then Clemson, falters again, against someone in the ACC, then that pretty much would put someone else in the championship game. It could be Louisville. Louisville plays a really cupcake. Oh man, they have a gift in my guy's first year. Gosh, I can't think of his name out of hand, but new Louisville coach there that used to play at Louisville actually. They have a cupcake schedule, so we'll see if they can squeeze in there. Maybe not lose a game. I guess you have North Carolina that could squeeze in there with Drake May possibly, but they were fairly lucky last year. They won 9 games, but easily could have only won 6. They arguably should have lost about 3 other games. If FSU matches up with Clemson in the championship game, a rematch, that probably would be a tougher game. I would think by then Clemson's quarterback and our OC should be on the same page, and they should pretty much have an identity of what it is they want to do. So that would be a tougher game. I won't give a prediction on that game because you really have no idea what they would be at that point. I feel comfortable saying in game 4 that they'll have some things to work on probably. But yeah, so there you have it, man. I think FSU has a really good shot of going undefeated. But if you look at the win shares that I have, that puts them at 10 wins. So we'll see how that unfolds. But I really appreciate you guys checking in with me. If you haven't liked this video and you're watching it still, give me a like. If you haven't subscribed and you like FSU content, you like a level-headed guy that shoots it to you straight, talks recruiting, talks game breakdowns, and just as a former college athlete, I can give you some insight that most people can't. Give me a subscribe, man. I really appreciate it, and spread the word. We'll be coming back with another video probably in the next day or so. So again, appreciate your time, and go Noles.